absolutely huge news in the GPU space. We got new GPUs coming out, upcoming info about RDNA3. We have FSR 2.0 getting modded into games. Didn't I say that wasn't possible? More details on that in just a second. First, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. A huge thank you to today's sponsor, World of Warships. It's a free-to-play game available on PC with top-notch new graphics. The game's 40 unique maps with dynamic weather have been updated with stunning new water effects and textures, making the game's seas virtually indistinguishable from the real deal. There's multiple ship classes to choose from. You could conquer the oceans on a battleship, destroyer, aircraft carrier, or cruiser. You could even go into the depths with a submarine. There's new content released every month, new ships, in-game nations, cosmetics, even ship classes. You'll never get bored in the game's massive 12 versus 12 arenas. You can play as a lone wolf in a division with your friends. And this goes beyond just being a game. It's a unique digital museum displaying breathtaking recreations of not just the most fearsome vessels from the First and Second World Wars, but also many blueprints and designs that never even saw the light of day. They've been given life in the game's virtual dockyards. It's also available on consoles, and be sure to register into the game through the link in the description to get a huge starter pack. During the registration, use the code FIRE to get free 200 doubloons, Premium Battleship USS Texas, 1,000,000 credits, and 7 days of premium account. Again, click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. All right, let's start off with FSR 2.0 being modded into Cyberpunk, and that this might mean that we could be getting FSR 2.0 modded into any game that supports DLSS 2.0 or better. Now, first of all, this image capture here is not mine. You can see the URL up here at Tech Power Up. Link will be in the description, so please check this out. I wanted to test this out myself, but I've been traveling all weekend. I had family reunion stuff going on. Anyway, the point is, this has been tested out by a number of people now. And first of all, let's just confirm, like the easiest way to tell whether this is actually FSR 2.0 versus 1.0 is kick it into performance mode and look at like the fence back there, right? This is just absolute night and day difference. So this is clearly doing a much better upscale than FSR 1.0. And again, to be clear, this game does not officially have FSR 2.0 support. So how is this happening and what am I looking at here? So again, this is a Tech Power article that I suggest taking a look at. So overall, what happened is there's a mod that takes the DLSS algorithm, which uses a DLL file, dynamic something or other library. I'm not a game developer, but the point is that this dynamic library is calling in information, but FSR 2.0 and DLSS use a lot of the same information in their upscaling techniques. So what's happening here is they're translating the DLSS calls into FSR 2.0 equivalents. And again, theoretically, this should be compatible with any game. If you can do this in one DLSS game, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do a similar process in other DLSS 2.0 or better games. So I think this is an absolutely huge deal. Now, how do you actually do it? Well, this article links to the actual download for the mod, but it looks like you just extract it, the archive into the Cyberpunk folder so that the 3 DLL files are in the same folder as the main exe file. You run the included enable signature override.reg file. So if that's a registry edit, I will always give my caution, be careful when you're just randomly registry editing things. And again, this is a mod, not official support from Cyberpunk. So as always, use and download at your own risk and all of those general warnings. Anyway, launch the game, go to the graphics option and enable the DLSS setting. And the game's DLSS setting is now running with FSR. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, if you already have a GPU that's running DLSS, you wouldn't want to do this unless it's just for fun to test it out, because DLSS is still a better upscaling technique than FSR 2.0, although it gets close. This would be useful for people who have an AMD GPU and are right now just having to use FSR 1.0, or if you have a GTX Nvidia GPU, you want your GTX 1080 to get some better performance here, well, kick on some FSR 2.0. So again, it's replacing DLSS with FSR 2.0. That's what this mod is doing. Now, in still images like this one, you don't see some of the shimmering and issues that can occur with the upscaling technique. So they did also include a side-by-side in-motion comparison between FSR 1.0, 2.0, and DLSS 2.4. So notice that they did actually update the DLL file in Cyberpunk with the newest version of DLSS as well. So you can see a comparison against the latest version of DLSS. Now, in their conclusions here, they did, let me get out of the way here, say that they find it to be a very noticeable upgrade compared to FSR 1.0, but they did find some issues. It's not perfect. It looks like they're seeing some of the ray traced reflections are rendered at a lower resolution than they should be. And it's also looking like what were they saying? I think they're saying that there's a lot of ghosting issues, like similar to what you saw in the DLSS 2.1 that the game ships with, but I think a lot worse than when you upgrade the DLSS to 2.4, or even worse in some scenarios than the 2.1. And I think they said this is especially while driving the vehicles. So again, this isn't absolutely perfect. Again, if you have DLSS already, use that, but compared to FSR 1.0, this is fantastic. And what I'm really excited about here, guys, by the way, check out this article. You can compare all sorts of different settings on these. You can switch them around. It's not limited to what's here in the screenshot. But again, I'm so excited for what this could mean for the future of mods. Like, if any DLSS supported game can be modded to support FSR 2.0, then, you know, the modding community will probably do that in a lot of major games, and this seems really exciting. Because one of the best things about FSR 1.0 was how fast it got adopted and how people were implementing it even in games that didn't officially support it. And I had said, this is where I was saying I was wrong about something. I said that we wouldn't be able to mod this into games. And while that's kind of true, you can't do it in the same way that like lossless scaling and Magpie just applied it as a post-processing upscale, you know, at the end of the render pipeline to any game. Well, we can't do that, but if you can hop into any game that has DLSS, and there's a lot of them, and just convert it into an FSR 2.0 implementation that works pretty well, that's a big deal, because one of the biggest weaknesses of FSR 2.0 has some image quality things that it could improve for sure, but the biggest issue right now is just game support, so I'm really excited to see that expanding. Now, I found this article extremely interesting. So this is from 3dcenter.org. So I've Google translated this from, I believe, German. But they were looking at, okay, what should graphics cards cost? Now, I'm not going to say that their methodology here is perfect, but I still think that it's extremely interesting. So what they did is they took the MSRP of an RTX 3070 and said that, okay, $500 for that performance, let's call that reasonable. Now, whether you agree with whether or not that's reasonable at this point towards the end of this GPU life cycle, fine, but I will say that that's a better deal than we are still usually seeing these for, unless you happen to snap one up at Best Buy on a Best Buy drop or something like that. But if they set that as the baseline, what they then do is they use the 4K performance index. Now, I get that they're just simplifying it and going with 4K, okay, whatever. Now, a lot of these GPUs wouldn't be GPUs you would want to use at 4K, and I think this could also be damaging like the AMD GPUs they'll compare this to in a minute here. But they basically compare their relative performance to the 3070 at 4K, and then they can look at the list price, and then the 4K performance divided by the list price gives you its percentage, that it's getting you there, and then you can adjust that percentage of its list price to get you what they would call a fair price, if it's basically offering the same 4K performance per dollar as an RTX 3070. And anyway, I thought that was an interesting way of looking at this pricing. Now, this completely ignores things like differences in VRAM, performance at resolutions other than 4K. I don't know which exact games they use to even use this 4K, where are they grabbing this 4K performance index, whether or not that factors in ray tracing performance. But it is interesting that if you do that, we see that some GPUs, MSRPs are fairly close to what they should be. Like the 3060 seems to be offering that same level of performance per dollar at its list price. But then some GPUs, like if we look at 3090 Ti, should cost about $814. Again, ignoring things like the added VRAM and you're paying for a Halo product, all of that. But anyway, as you move up the product stack, they're saying that performance per dollar should be a 3070 Ti at about $541, a 3080 at $659, 3080 12GB at $687. That one never even got an MSRP. 3080 Ti at $731, 3090 at $750, and 3060 Ti at $433, and down we go. Now, they even did this with the AMD cards. So you could take a look at this. Now again, the cards down at the bottom here, if you're judging them on their 4K performance index, I think this could be a little bit unfair. And we also do know that AMD GPUs tend to underperform at 4K relative to their Nvidia competitors, given how they compete at 1080p or 1440p. So by limiting this to a 4K performance index, that might skew these pricings a little bit. But it is pretty interesting here. So anyway, interesting way to look at this. I don't want to dwell on it too long because this isn't perfect. It ignores a lot of things. But if you want a rough idea of maybe what things should cost in a performance per dollar world where you could find 3070s for $500, that's actually pretty interesting. Now, moving on to talk about... this, like in a video cards article where I found this being reported on, there's this tweet from Megasize GPU, and I hope this isn't true, but in this one, they're saying that the 12GB 3080 has stopped being produced, meaning that Nvidia is not going to send more 3080 12GB chips to board partners for production. Now, I hate this because the 3080 12GB is my recommended high-end Nvidia GPU because it avoids the 10GB VRAM limit on the original 3080. It has 12GB just like a 3080 Ti, but without the 3080 Ti's ridiculous price tag for its performance jump compared to the original 3080. And the 3080 12GB even had a bit more CUDA cores and memory bandwidth, actually allowing it to split the difference in 4K performance between the 3080 10GB and 3080 Ti, but it was much closer in price to the 3080 10GB. Well, I hope this isn't true because the justification here seems to be like Nvidia realized that this was too good of a deal compared to 3080 Ti and it was deflating the prices of the 3080 Ti. So anyway, that's a little bit unfortunate if that does end up being the case. Now, speaking of Nvidia GPUs, there's a new one apparently launched today, although is it only launched in China or something like that? I tried to just go to Newegg and, well, not necessarily buy one, but see if I could buy one, and I didn't see it. But Video Cards has been leaking this and is now saying it is out. The GeForce GTX 1630. Yeah, that's right. We are getting a new 16 series GTX graphics card as the slowest graphics card in 2022. Well, at least NVIDIA's slowest graphics card. Now, I'm curious if this is designed to compete against the A380 from Intel, because it does have a similar MSRP in China. It looks like this is the Chinese MSRP, and again, this is why I'm thinking if this is launching now, maybe this is just in China since that's the one we're getting, or maybe more information will come out later today or by the time this video is even published. Who knows? But that does put it right around the MSRP of the ARC A380. Now, the ARC A380 can kind of compete in some cases with a 1650. It beats a 1050 Ti, But overall, the A380 is usually a bit slower, noticeably slower than a 1650. So maybe that's why we now have a 1630 to compete with it. I'm guessing that might have something to do with NVIDIA's thought process behind this. This is a 75-watt GPU, and we can look at how its specs are cut down. It has a higher boost clock than that 1650 G6, but it has half the memory bus, giving it a much slower memory bandwidth, and it has fewer CUDA cores as well. So again, I'm really wondering if this is NVIDIA's answer to the A380, which is apparently so slow that we need to release a slower graphics card in order to have one that competes directly with it. Oh, anyway, we've also seen a colorful model of the 1630 leak out here from video cards, and apparently this looks just like their 1650 model. And does it have an, yeah, I think it has a power connector, yeah, which is unfortunate because in my opinion, the only reason you would want a 75-watt graphics card is to not require a power connector from your PSU, because you might be throwing this into some kind of Dell Optiplex build or something like that, where you just throw in a cheap GPU that can get powered off the PCIe slot or whatever. So anyway, I'm hoping we actually get some low-profile designs that just power off of the PCIe slot. So interesting. Now, along with this, there is a driver update from NVIDIA, allowing, the big deal being the support for the GTX 1630. So this is, support's being added from NVIDIA, so this is really happening. There's also some fixed issues in a few games, as well as game-ready drivers for F122, as well as it looks like updates for Loopmancer and Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Now, how about some AMD RX 7000 graphics card updates here? So this isn't a massive change, but basically it's a quote from AMD's SVP of Engineering at Radeon Technologies Group. Some quotes that I think were kind of passed up on reporting here that WCCF Tech is following up on at this point. So speaking about RDNA3, he says, it's also our first gaming GPU architecture that will leverage the enhanced 5nm process and an advanced chip packaging technology, which we've seen referred to as a chiplet packaging process here in other articles we've seen. And another innovation includes architected compute units with enhanced ray tracing capabilities. So they're definitely saying they're enhancing their ray tracing capabilities, and an optimized graphics pipeline with even faster clock speeds. Now, RDNA 2 already had extremely fast clock speeds when compared with NVIDIA's Ampere. So seeing that they'll go even faster clock speeds with enhanced ray tracing capabilities is a big deal. I think next-gen NVIDIA GPUs are definitely going to have ray tracing that's going to be hard to ignore. A lot of times people nowadays are like, well, it's too big of a performance hit. Well, if we see another generational leap in ray tracing performance, AMD is really going to have to enhance that in order to be able to compete at similar price points, which I know they'd like to do with their NVIDIA counterparts. Now, they're all saying, and to bring more photorealistic effects into the domain of real-time gaming, they're developing the hybrid approaches that takes the performance of the rasterization combined with the visual fidelity of ray tracing to deliver the best real-time immersive experiences without compromising performance. So it looks like they're really looking into efficient ways and hybrid ways to take in rasterization with ray tracing to not take massive performance hits, which is cool. Now, here's a big deal. A lot of people are concerned about AMD's video encoding abilities. Well, it looks like they're going to be supporting AV1 to deliver high-quality video streaming and reduce latencies and bit rates. And they'll also improve their display capabilities with DisplayPort 2.0 standard, which will help support HDR displays with high resolutions and refresh rates. Now, this is all interesting. It's not a whole lot of granular detail on exactly what they're doing, but this is all good stuff to hear. And I'll also mention on the DisplayPort 2.0 standard, Intel's Arc A380 actually already has that. They also have the AV1 encoding You know, it's looking like next-gen GPUs are going to be starting competing on those types of features. Now, how about this? Ryzen 7000 Dragon, they're saying Dragon Rage here. I thought it's called Dragon Range. Is that a typo? Anyway, for high-end laptops and Phoenix Point for mainstream laptops detailed. Now, this can be a big deal. And it looks like there were some leaks from Red Gaming Tech, who does have a history of getting some insider info from AMD ahead of time on a lot of this stuff. So Dragon Range, yeah, I was right. There's an N there. Anyway, now I do think Dragon Rage sounds cooler, but anyway. So it's looking like these are Zen 4 desktop chips in mobile form, just like we were thinking. 2 CUs, single WGP on the, so 2 CUs I think are the RDNA graphics stuff in there. But anyway, it looks like we're going up to 16 cores, 12 cores, 8 cores, 6 cores, clocks 4.8 to 5 gigahertz plus boost, 3.6 to 4 gigahertz plus base depending on TDP. These are cool for high-end stuff. I'm personally more interested in the Phoenix for its integrated graphics. So these have a lower number of CPUs, cores, it looks like kind of cut in half versus the Dragon Range. And what I'm interested in here is the iGPU with RDNA3 graphics built in, and it's looking like the highest end one will go up to 1,536 shaders total with 9.2 teraflops. Which Red Gaming Tech is saying is the same as he was reporting back in May. And that the target for the highest end is about RTX 3060 mobile levels of performance. But again, this is in an integrated chip. So that's a pretty big deal, in my opinion. So anyway, watch the full Red Gaming Tech video on this if you are interested in more of his full thoughts and details on the topic, but I am excited for AMD Phoenix integrated graphics here. Now, how about the Steam Deck? The Steam Deck shipments hopefully will start to actually catch up with demand. I'd like to get one of these, but I don't have any kind of insider deal on one, so I'd have to buy stupid inflated like eBay prices, and I don't want to do that. So anyway, the Steam Deck Twitter account is telling us that some great news on the production front. We just sent the last batch of Q2 emails, and we'll start sending Q3 reservation emails on the 30th, and production has picked up. After today, we'll be shipping more than double the number of Steam Decks every week. So that's good news. With production doubling, maybe I can actually get one before they're completely out of date. Now, the Epic Game Store Twitter, if we're going to talk to a competitor to Steam, not the Steam Deck directly, but the Epic Game Store, is announcing a massive 20 million active players in the first 48 hours. So that is definitely beating a previous Epic Game Store record. It looks like this ties into their Fall Guys free-to-play on Epic Game Store weekend. Now, how about AMD Threadripper if you have a lot of money to buy a lot of cores? Well, it looks like these are already going on sale in China. So these are not official MSRP prices, but these are prices at which they are available in China. It's looking like the top-end chip is over $7,000 if you convert the Chinese currency into US dollars. While the 5975WX is at $3,500 and the 5965WX is at $2,572 US dollars. Now, if you need a quick reminder on these, video cards has you covered. That top end is the 64-core 128-thread chip. The 5965 is the 2448 thread, and we've got that 3264 thread in between here. Anyway, I think if you need this many cores, you already know who you are, and you might be willing to pay that because this is for productivity. Anyway, speaking of productivity, there are some leaks here of ARC-A Pro graphics cards that aren't officially announced, and we don't have official details on showing up in the Sandra software, SiSoftware or whatever it is, database, but we don't really get a lot of details out of this. Feel free to look into this article more closely yourself. Again, I always link my sources in my description. Now, other quick news, it looks like AMD got hacked. There's a ransom house extortion group which claims to have stolen 450 gigabits. They do have a lowercase b here. Maybe they meant to capitalize it, worth of data, or want to make it sound bigger than it is. It does not look like it's an actual ransomware attack, so it doesn't look like ransomware, and it's unclear exactly what has been leaked here. So anyway, hopefully this doesn't slow down AMD at all or leak anything important. I don't like to see this type of thing, but thought I'd report that it has happened. Now, a couple quick game-related things you may be interested in. So the Team Fortress 2 community has made huge splashes trying to get help for the bot problem that has been just ruining the game. Well, it looks like Valve has responded and 30,000 bot accounts have been removed suddenly following an update, so that's good to see. And then it looks like Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection should be coming to PC this year. There was an updated within the Steam database release date for that, but it's been updated again to December 30th, which kind of feels like a placeholder date. But that should maybe mean that it's coming at some point this year, and they're just putting the end of the year as a placeholder. Who knows, but I'd be excited to see more Sony exclusives, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.